our first question is asking us, what is the perimeter of a rhombus whose diagonals are 16 and 30? So I kind of like this answer here, because what they're doing is that they drew a diagram, and geometry is really, really good because when we're drawing a shape here is very, very good to visualize a geometric question or a geometry question here. So I'm asking for the perimeter of rhombus whose diagonals are 16 and 30. So like they drew it over there, you have kind of a rhombus type situation here. And then basically you have diagonals that go from each side here. They kind of go from each side here. And they all intersect at 90 degrees, right? So all these guys here are 90 degrees. So they all make right angles. And we know that our diagonals here are how they written as, they wrote kind of A here, B, C, and D, and this here is O. So diagonals A and C would equal 16. So between A to C, this would equal 16, and from B to D here, from B to D here would equal 30. So it's asking us, what is the perimeter of the shape? Like, what is the perimeter of the shape here? So if you remember here, the rhombus is a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides, right? And its diagonals intersect at an angle of 90 degrees, which means the diagonals are perpendicular. So that means that all these sides here are equal. B to C is equal, A to B, A to D, and C to D, right? So all these sides are equal, which means the perimeter here is simply just 4 times one of these, the length of these sides here. So in order for us to do that, again, how they did it here is they did perimeter of rhombus can be shown, and they use P times A plus B times C equals P times A times D and C and D, right? You can say it's that, but we know that because A and B and C and A and D and C and D are equal, you can simply just say it's basically 4 times the amount, right? So it's P basically L plus W, kind of the same thing as a perimeter of a rectangle, right? Perimeter of a rectangle would be the 2 times 2 and then length times length plus width, sorry. So it's kind of very, very similar to this as well. So I'm going to write down the perimeter of a rhombus here. Equals 2 times, I can say length plus W. In this case, they wrote A plus B plus C plus D here. Or it could also basically AD plus CD, right? It's depending on which sides we know, but we all know that all of these sides are equal. So it's saying here, if diagonals A and C and B and D are known and they're given to us, the half of diagonals, so from A to O and from O to C here, would be simply just these numbers divided by 2, right? So what we know about this is that we know that every time we take a diagonal, if we take half of diagonal here, we know that it's from the one of the corners to one of the centers, or basically the center of our rhombus here. So if we know that from between A to C here, so let me do this in blue. Between A to C here, we know that this here is 16. So 16 divided by 2 is obviously 8, right? So A to O would be 8 here, and O to C would be 8 here, right? So that's that. And then from B to D, the entire length here is 30, right? Entire length here is 30. So if we divide it by 2, then we would have 15 on one side and 15 on the other side, right? So this here would be the sides of the rhombus here. And we know that, remember, we know that these all make right triangles here, right? So these guys all make right triangles. So they basically, what we have here is we have simply just a right triangle, right? We have a triangle here with 8 on this side and 15 on this side here. And I'm highlighting, and I'm basically redrawing out kind of this triangle here. It has a side length of 8 and a side length of 15. And it's asking us what is the side length here? So what is this guy here? So in order for me to do this, again, I can easily do Pythagorean theorem to figure this side length out, right? So I know that x squared equals basically 8 squared plus 45 squared, and then, or sorry, 15 squared. I don't know why 15 squared here. And then x squared here equals 8 squared has 64. 15 squared would be, I believe it's 225. Double check that. 225. I add those numbers up together. 225 plus 64, and I would get 289. And then I can square root both sides to get, if I square root both sides here, I would get 17 here. So my side length I know is 17. So this A to D here is 17, right? 17 here, which means my side lengths, because they're equal to each other, these guys are all 17 here, right? So now I can easily find the perimeter of my rhombus, right? I can say that 2 here, this here equals 2. This here equals 2. And the AD here is obviously 17. CD is also 17 here. So this is 2 times 17 plus 17 equals 34. And then finally 2 times 34 here is 68. So the perimeter of my rhombus here is 68 units. Yes, it's 68 units because they didn't give us our length here. So this solution here is correct. Again, hence the perimeter is 68. They did probably something that's different than I did, because they substituted something different instead of the perimeter of the rhombus here. I just used the initial perimeter formula here, but they did 4 times the Pythagorean theorem. So basically, they substituted kind of this formula here for AB here. So that works as well. It depends on how you think of the question. I thought of it as a right triangle, so I had Pythagorean theorem to solve for this, and then I substituted the number in. You can always do algebra first and rearrange for your unknowns, and then substitute it. So that works as well. Am I the only one watching? I don't know, actually. I can't tell how many. It doesn't tell me how many viewers are watching, so maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But again, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, so hence the perimeter is 68 degrees. So this solution here is correct.